Nearly a third of men and over half of women are widowed by the time they're 65, and not enough people plan for it. That's what we're going to be getting in today. Welcome to Saturday State of Mind. I'm Jess Panico, joined by Mike Panico as always. Before we dive into it, hit that subscribe button to learn more. Mike, how are you doing?
This is a great topic, Jess, and I think it gets a little bit underserved. Not everybody plans together, or even if they do plan together, they don't necessarily plan for what life might look like if one of the two are having their retirement on their own, And so it's not always a very popular thing to discuss, but it's that just much more important because of the impact, of course, that it can have.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a crazy statistic if you think 65 is so young,
Yeah.
especially nowadays, like in this country where average expectancy is, 70s, even close to 80, like for women. This might happen. And if you haven't planned properly for it, you're in a bit of a pickle, because I can only imagine, not having actually walked in these shoes before, if you're going through the emotional turmoil of losing a spouse, the last thing you want to have to figure out too is, what am I doing with my retirement plan?
So let's go over some best practices. I think for sure you want to plan together. And I think for a lot of couples, that's like kind of a no-brainer. Of course, we're going to plan together. That's not always how people execute, though. When you look at two people, sometimes there's the one person who enjoys managing the money and paying the bills, and then there's the other spouse that's like, leave me out of it.
Sure.
I want nothing to do with this. And so it's not uncommon at Arcadia, say for an initial consultation, for somebody to come in solo. And they'll say things to us like, well, I'm the person that handles the finances, who I'm married to. They take a back seat. They trust me. They're not going to want to be involved. And we actually have a standing policy when this happens. We say, hey, listen, we don't mind you scouting things out by yourself, but if we decide to engage and do some planning together, it is a must that your spouse be in attendance. And it's because of this very risk, Jess. At some point, the spouse who's not interested might have to execute on this plan. And if they're totally unfamiliar with it, by the time that happens, think about what kind of confidence that they're going to have in sticking to that plan, or in still continuing to enjoy themselves, or similar, right? So we've always said one of the best ways to address this, whether you fully like it or not, is please, you've got to plan together. For us, it's mandatory.
Sure. I just said in the statistic that opened this up, 50% of women are widowed by the time that they're 65. So that's certainly greater, because statistically, women outlive their spouses. Also, statistically, there's a lot of married couple that, the women are in charge of the finances, but mostly it's the men that are. And I know that Vanguard and a number of other research institutes have done studies that say about 70% of women will leave their current financial advisor after their spouse has passed. And I can imagine the number one reason for that is because they weren't involved in the process to start off.
There's
they don't
no relationship.
know. There's no relationship.
Sure.
Is this someone that I can trust? And if I'm taking a look at this relationship for the first time, then I got to figure out, is this right for me? So that's why I think it is super important. Arcadia says, hey, we all plan together as one happy family here.
I think that brings me to my next point that I wanted to make, and that's the value of that relationship. So it's not uncommon to run into a couple where one of them is the do-it-yourselfer. I manage the money. I do such a good job with it that I don't even know if I need a financial advisor, is something they say to themselves.
Sure.
And the hypothetical I always run them through goes a little something like this. Okay, sir, you're a do-it-yourselfer. I'm reviewing your stuff. It actually looks pretty good. But if you were to be hit by a bus, to what extent can we trust your beloved over here, your wife, to execute on this plan? And he always says, oh, I've left instructions. I've got spreadsheets. She's going to be fine. And then I look over at her, and oftentimes she's got this deer in the headlights look on her face. She's like, I don't even know what these spreadsheets are. I don't know what they're communicating. I would go to get help. And that's the problem. In this industry, there's a lot of different professionals out there. Some are good, some aren't so good. Some of them are good people, some of them are bad actors. And so now we're leaving it to chance for your widow to find one of the good ones, one of the conscientious ones, as opposed to maybe she runs into the wrong person. So sometimes we say to do-it-yourselfers, you might want to engage in a relationship now, regardless of how badly it is that you think that you need it, because at least you're vetting out a partner that can work with that surviving spouse who's going to respect your wishes, honor your values, and help you carry forward this plan over the next 20, 30 years, whether you're along for the ride or not.
Right. She shouldn't have to have a PhD to understand how to execute on the plan that you laid out. And if you think, well, at the end of the day, she's just going to pick up a phone and call someone else out of the yellow pages or, Google at this point, that's probably not what you intended to do in the first place, right? So it's all about setting those expectations and getting everybody involved. I also really like that here at Arcadia, when we have a meeting with prospective clients, we will ask both of them, what is your confidence in your retirement plan? Because that gives us a real good understanding to how both of them see it. And certainly, that answer is always all over the board. But I think it's most telling when sometimes one spouse, maybe the husband with the spreadsheet, says, oh, I'm like an 8 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10. And then the wife says, I'm like a 4 out of 10. And quite frankly, it's not because I don't trust him. I just don't really know what maybe is happening here. So that's very telling because we know that we need to bring them into the fold, to educate, to provide clarity, but to mostly just be a resource that you can pick up that phone and call us and know that we're someone that you can trust that has your best interest in mind.
So Jess, let's talk a little bit about those confidence levels too. Maybe we talk to somebody and they're both 8s out of 10. They're feeling great about their future. We've been through a lot of situations with clients that we love where somebody passes away and we're working with that widow and the confidence level changes a lot. This is an enormous life change. It's not unlike bringing a new baby into the world, except it's the polar opposite. Somebody that you've been with for decades, oftentimes it's your best friend, the love of your life is gone. And we've seen people devastated in the aftermath of this. It shakes their confidence. They're not sure what they should be continuing to do with their lives, how they should be spending their money, how they can honor that person's memory. I think sometimes just people forget the value in a great financial planning relationship goes beyond the X's and O's. What we do isn't necessarily about just finding better investments or opportunities to save money on your taxes. Sometimes it's just to be there for as a shoulder to cry on, but also to give people back some of their confidence, to give them something to look forward to talk about things that they can do. Because by the way, we can borrow from experience. We've navigated many people through this. Should we move a little bit to get a change for an environment? Should we get involved with new, say, social activities? What can we do for family members and maybe get out of our houses and take a trip to get our mind off of things, but continue to live life because life has to go on. And so much of what we do sometimes in these situations is less about financial planning and more about life coaching. And there's value to that.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, it's very tragic losing your spouse and maybe your best friend as well. But there are still more Saturdays, and maybe those look different. But like you said, sometimes I think with our clients that have been with us for a while, we talk more about life than we do money, and we're happy to talk about whatever. But I think that's very reassuring for couples to come in and talk about that. So if you perhaps haven't done proper planning together as a couple, or you find yourself in a newly single or widowed situation, feel free to give Arcadia a call. We would love to be a resource for you. Hit that subscribe and like button. And if this has been helpful for you, check out our video of confidence versus optimization. We'll see you next time.